the stranger in the room. Long before his name became a permanent stain in American criminal history, Ted Bundy was simply another face in the crowd. A polite smile, a clean haircut, a man who blended in so perfectly that people mistook him for safety. In the early 1970s, he walked the campus of the University of Washington as if he belonged everywhere at once. He carried books under his arm. He held doors open for strangers. He memorized faces, routines, vulnerabilities. To everyone around him, he looked like a student with ambition, a volunteer with empathy, a future leader with promise. Behind that facade was a mind quietly studying people with a far darker purpose. One of the first to be drawn into his orbit was, in Rule, a former police officer who worked beside him at a crisis hotline. She remembered him as a patient listener, the kind of man who leaned forward when someone spoke and gave them his full attention. He seemed gentle, methodical, warm. She had no reason to fear him, yet her dog reacted differently. Every time Bundy leaned over her desk, the dog bristled and growled, sensing something and could not yet understand. That instinct would prove to be the sharpest warning she never followed. During this same period, Bundy drifted deeper into psychology studies and politics. He volunteered for a governor's re-election campaign and even spied on the opposition, gathering information at debates and reporting back to the team. His supervisors considered him dedicated, resourceful, and driven. To them, he looked like a future strategist. To Bundy, it was simply another lesson in manipulation. Despite the growing cracks in his personal life, he managed to keep everyone fooled. He stayed in a relationship with Elizabeth Kendall while convincing his former girlfriend Stephanie Brooks to take him back. To both women, he presented different versions of himself. To both, he offered promises he never intended to keep. When Stephanie agreed to get engaged, he abruptly cut off all communication. No explanation, no closure. When she finally reached him by phone, confused and hurt, he told her he had no idea what she was talking about. A complete rewrite of reality delivered in a calm voice. A performance from someone who understood how to make another person doubt their own memory. Not long after this emotional collapse in his personal relationships, something shifted. Investigators and psychologists would later describe this period as the ignition point, the moment where resentment, control, and fantasy came together and turned into action. On a cold January morning in 1974, a student in Seattle named Karen Sparks was attacked in her home. Her roommate found her nearly a day later still alive but severely injured. She would survive, but nothing about her life would ever return to normal. Sparks later told authorities that she had seen Ted Bundy around campus before the night she was attacked. Always nearby, always watching. The timing and pattern would echo through every case that came after. Only a few weeks later, another student vanished. 21-year-old Linda Ann Healy, known for her work as a ski and weather reporter, disappeared from her bedroom. There was blood on her bed sheets. Her nightgown hung in the closet with a ring of dried blood around the collar, and some of her clothing and personal belongings were missing. Everything suggested that someone had entered her room quietly, incapacitated her, and taken her away while she was unconscious. Investigators could not confirm what happened, but the method pointed toward a pattern that would later become unmistakable. Students on campus were rattled, but still unaware of the threat growing around them. Strangers walked the sidewalks every day. People moved in and out of buildings without a second glance. No one knew that the man responsible for these attacks was already working his way through the crowd, choosing, studying, waiting. His crimes did not begin with chaos. They began with proximity, with trust, with a mask he had perfected long before anyone realized what was hiding underneath. Before the nightmare grew into national fear, this was how it started. Quiet, calculated, hidden in plain sight, vanishing hours. By the spring of 1974, the city of Seattle carried a quiet tension that no one could fully explain. Students walked in pairs. Dorm lights stayed on longer than usual. Conversations lowered to whispers whenever someone mentioned the disappearances. People felt watched, but they could not place the reason. The threat felt invisible because the man behind it knew how to disappear into the background better than anyone. Ted Bundy had mastered the art of the harmless smile. He knew when to hold books to look busy, when to wave politely, when to look slightly confused so others would stop to help him. He blended into crowds so well that even when people felt uneasy, they could not remember why. He studied behavior the way others studied textbooks. He practiced how to approach strangers without raising suspicion. Every detail mattered and every detail was used. As police sifted through the early cases, something troubled investigators. There were no clear connections between the victims except age and proximity to campus. These young women did not know each other. They lived in different neighborhoods. Their schedules did not overlap. Nothing linked them except the growing fear that someone was hunting. Meanwhile, Bundy kept moving through his life as if nothing had changed. He continued dating Elizabeth Kendall, presenting himself as supportive, charming, and attentive. He kept attending classes, kept showing up at political events, and kept appearing in places where no one expected danger. He always looked calm. He always looked confident. He always looked like someone who should be trusted. But beneath the surface, his pattern was becoming sharper. His targets began to resemble the same image. Long hair parted in the middle. Young, intelligent, busy enough that strangers around them barely noticed their routines changing. Bundy paid attention to every detail. He followed walking paths. He learned nighttime schedules. He watched which students stayed late in libraries and which ones walked home alone. In June, the tension on campus turned to fear when another student disappeared. Investigators struggled to find a lead. There were no signs of forced entry. No witnesses recalled anything unusual. It was as if she had simply stepped out of her life and vanished into thin air. In the days that followed, more disappearances occurred. Each one quiet, sudden, and without warning. Parents called the police daily. Students demanded answers. The community held meetings searching for patterns that still refused to reveal themselves. It was not until multiple survivors from nearby areas reported seeing a man requesting help near a campus parking lot that a description finally began to form. He introduced himself politely. He spoke clearly. He claimed to have an injury and asked for assistance loading items into his vehicle. Witnesses described him as handsome, well-dressed, and confident. No one wanted to believe that the man they saw might have been the same person behind the disappearances. It did not fit the image of a predator. It did not match what danger was supposed to look like. Bundy relied on that disbelief. He counted on it. He knew people trusted good manners more than intuition. He knew that a soft voice could disarm fear faster than any weapon. He understood that when someone looks ordinary, others can overlook the warning signs right in front of them. By July, investigators realized the disappearances were not isolated. A pattern emerged in the locations. Public spaces, busy areas, places where strangers should not be able to lure someone away without drawing attention. The idea that a single person might be responsible for all of it started to take shape, though the evidence remained thin. Authorities released a composite sketch and a description of a man named Ted driving a light-colored Volkswagen. It was the first time Bundy's name reached the public, yet even then people who knew him dismissed the possibility instantly. He looked too normal. He acted too polite. The idea that he could be involved felt unthinkable. But the truth was already unfolding. The man walking among them, the man who once volunteered at a crisis hotline and attended political meetings, was quietly accelerating his pace. His confidence grew. His methods became smoother. His planning became sharper. And for the first time, law enforcement was beginning to sense the storm forming behind him. What no one realized yet was that the disappearances were only the beginning. The case was about to cross state lines, confuse jurisdictions, and shake entire communities. By the time anyone understood the scale, Bundy had already moved on to his next target. The illusion of safety was gone. The hunt had begun. The final hours. By early 1978, the country had already heard Ted Bundy's name, but few understood the scope of what had unfolded across multiple states. The escapes, the charm, the calculated persona, the sudden vanishing acts, the shifting identities. It all created a nightmare that stretched far beyond anything investigators had dealt with before. Law enforcement agencies from Washington to Utah to Colorado were struggling to track a man who seemed to move like a shadow. When Bundy escaped from Colorado custody and disappeared into the night, the public assumed he had fled the region completely. But what no one expected was how quickly he would blend into life in Florida. He took on a new alias, slipped into a new town, and began acting like just another face passing through. Even those who interacted with him daily had no idea who he really was. The Chi Omega House at Florida State University represented everything Bundy had lost. Youth, normalcy, opportunity. Instead of letting go, He fixated on it. Investigators later realized that his crimes in Florida were not random. They were an attempt to reclaim the power he believed had been stolen from him. By the time authorities identified him as the attacker, Bundy had already left Tallahassee behind and moved to Lake City, trying to outrun the trail of chaos he created. The murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach became the turning point that pulled together months of investigative work. Her case unified jurisdictions that had previously struggled to communicate with one another. For the first time, detectives began building a clearer timeline of Bundy's movements. Witness sightings matched vehicle descriptions. Fibers matched clothing. A pattern began to sharpen. Bit by bit, the illusion Bundy created started to crumble. The arrest in Pensacola was almost anticlimactic. There was no dramatic escape, no clever disguise, no charm thick enough to cover the truth. A simple traffic stop was all it took. Officers recognized that the man behind the wheel did not belong in the neighborhood. Bundy attempted to run, but he had lost the advantage he once held. His confidence did not save him this time. His smile did not help him. His words carried no weight. Once in custody, Bundy tried to resurrect a performance he had perfected for years. He represented himself in court. He cross-examined witnesses. He delivered long speeches filled with confidence and theatrics. But this time the world was watching through a much clearer lens. This time the evidence spoke louder than his charm. Bite marks, eyewitness accounts, survivor testimonies, all of it formed a story that even Bundy could not talk his way out of. During the televised trial, the public saw him exactly as he was. Not a misunderstood genius, not a charismatic outsider, not a victim of the system he pretended to fight. They saw a man who spent years manipulating everyone around him, convinced he could outsmart the world forever. The confidence that once captivated onlookers now appeared hollow. His courtroom smiles looked rehearsed. His interruptions seemed desperate. His calm demeanor felt unsettling. When the guilty verdict was finally read, there was no dramatic outburst, no crumbling facade. Bundy simply stood there, absorbing the reality he once believed he was immune to. The crowds outside cheered when news of the sentence reached them. Families who had lived through years of unanswered questions finally felt the beginning of closure. Bundy's second death sentence in the Kimberly Leach case sealed his fate. His final years were filled with failed appeals, late-night interviews, and scattered confessions designed to delay the inevitable. Even near the end, he tried to bargain with information he once refused to share. But the justice system no longer entertained his games. The countdown moved forward with or without his cooperation. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed at Florida State Prison. Outside the gates, hundreds gathered to witness the moment. Many held signs. Some prayed. Others simply waited in silence. For them, it was not a celebration of death. It was an end to a story that haunted them for decades. A moment that finally closed a chapter no community ever wanted to live through. Bundy's legacy remained a warning, not about monsters who hide in the dark, but about the ones who learn to smile in the daylight. He showed the world that danger does not always look frightening. Sometimes it looks familiar. Sometimes it looks educated. Sometimes it looks polite. And sometimes it looks exactly like the person no one suspects. The case reshaped criminal investigation across the country. Profiling techniques evolved. Coordination between states improved. Television coverage of trials changed permanently. And more importantly, a generation learned to trust their instincts in ways they never had before. Bundy believed he could rewrite his story until his final breath. Instead, the world wrote it for him. And the conclusion was one he never imagined. Justice caught up. The mask finally fell. And the victims were never forgotten. If you are following this series and want more true crime breakdowns, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next story.